On the day my CEO boyfriend, Benjamin West, and I go register our marriage, his manipulative female assistant, Chelsea Miller, suddenly hands over her ID first. Just like that, the marriage certificate that is supposed to belong to me and Benjamin becomes one hers and his instead. Taken aback, I anxiously ask what is going on. But Chelsea suddenly drops to her knees dramatically and cries in despair. Giselle, this is all my fault. My child needs a local address to enroll in school. If it hadn't been for that, I would never have resorted to a fake marriage with Benjamin. She even sobs inconsolably and threatens to smash her head against the wall, so as to make it up to me with her death. Benjamin is usually clear-headed and can easily distinguish right from wrong. But this time, not only does he not defend me, but he even slaps me in public. He fumes. Chelsea is a single mother. She's only doing this for her child. Do you really have to be so petty? It's just a marriage certificate. Once her child gets into school, I will divorce her. Can't we register our marriage a little later? Is it necessary to back her into a corner? Hurry up and apologize to Chelsea. Then, give half of your salary to her as compensation. If you cooperate, I can lend you the marriage certificate for Chelsea and me so you can take some photos and show off in the family group chat. Otherwise, forget about marrying me. I laugh humorlessly. Then let's not register our marriage at all. Not only do I no longer want the marriage certificate, but I also don't want him anymore. At my words, my boyfriend, Benjamin West, froze for a moment, clearly not expecting his threat to fail this time. As if he had realized something, he let out a cold snort after a while. Giselle, this is just another one of your little games, isn't it? Playing hard to get? Why are you so petty? He berated me. Chelsea's already struggling enough raising a child while trying to make it in a big city. What's wrong with me helping her out as her boss? We can register our marriage anytime. But if Chelsea registers too late, her child won't be able to enroll in kindergarten. If that ruins the kid's future, will you take responsibility for it? If you're this cold-hearted, how do you expect me to feel safe marrying you? Or making you the mother of my future children? Listening to his self-righteous speech, I rubbed my cheek, still numb and throbbing from the slap. Yet inside, I felt calmer than ever before. Maybe it was because things like this had happened far too many times already that I had grown numb to it. Out of the corner of my eye, I glanced at Chelsea Miller, the assistant who had just claimed she would smash her head against the wall to apologize to me. I almost laughed. She moved more slowly than a snail, and her forehead barely even tapped the wall. Forget knocking herself unconscious. She probably couldn't even crack jelly with that force. The act was painfully fake, yet Benjamin believed every second of it. This time, I didn't swallow my anger like I always had. Instead, I shot back coldly. She stole my fiancé, and I'm supposed to be not upset? Should I smile and thank her for it as well? Chelsea's eyes instantly reddened, and she made another show of throwing herself toward the wall. Benny, this is all my fault. I'll just die to make up for everything. Benjamin quickly stopped her, his face full of concern. Then he turned to me and snapped. Are you done, Giselle? Apologize to Chelsea, then give her half your salary as compensation. You owe her that. He had always favored Chelsea. The slightest thing upset her, and he would force me to apologize and make amends to her. Once, she filled out the wrong contract figures, causing the company to lose millions. Even then, he made me take the blame for her. I used to love him, so I compromised time after time. Now, I didn't want to give in anymore. I didn't do anything wrong, so why should I apologize? I argued. If anything, she's the one who should be apologizing to me.
Benjamin's visage darkened.
Giselle, you. Before he could explode, I turned and walked away without looking back. By the time I stepped out of the city hall, the sky was already dark. Watching the couples passing by on the streets, I felt a dull ache spread through my chest. In hindsight, everything screamed irony. Benjamin and I had been together for 6 years, yet we still hadn't gotten married. At first, he said marriage would hurt his career prospects, that we needed to focus on building his business first. To help him succeed, I gave up my stable, high-paying job without hesitation and followed him to the city to start a company from scratch. I drank myself sick at endless business dinners and networking events, and in the end, I helped him secure a comfortable position as CEO. However, once his career stabilized, he suddenly claimed he needed to test my sincerity. He said he would only agree to marry me if I passed all 52 premarital tests Chelsea had set up. So, under the excuse of testing me, Chelsea made me collect 9,999 handwritten blessings from strangers. When I arrived at the office, she would deliberately dump ice water over my head. She even put laxatives in my drink, so I ended up having explosive diarrhea during business meetings and humiliating myself in public. That wasn't all. Whenever Benjamin and I went on dates, she would constantly find excuses to pull him away, claiming it was another test for me. For his sake, I endured it all. Then yesterday, right after I finished a design proposal I had spent an entire year working on, Chelsea demanded that I hand it over to her, saying it was the final test. When I hesitated, she immediately twisted it into proof that I didn't truly love Benjamin. In the end, I gave it to her. Only then did he finally agree to register our marriage. I was so excited that night that I couldn't sleep at all. Early the next morning, I rushed to the city hall to get a number and wait in line. Our marriage certificate was practically within reach. Then, Chelsea suddenly appeared and registered the marriage with Benjamin instead. I had only questioned them with a few words, but he immediately defended her and accused me of having a filthy mind, saying I saw something dirty in everything. But if he truly had no feelings for Chelsea, why didn't he help the other single parents in the company? Why was she the only one who received preferential treatment? It took me a while, but I finally understood it. Benjamin's heart had long since drifted away from me. All those so-called tests were nothing more than excuses. He never wanted to marry me in the first place. My stomach twisted with emptiness. And only then did I remember I hadn't eaten all day. I had skipped breakfast just to get to the city hall earlier and line up for our marriage registration, only to end up doing it for someone else. What a joke. I found a restaurant and had a meal. Right after I finished eating, I saw Benjamin post a photo of his marriage certificate with Chelsea on social media. Our co-workers flooded the comments with congratulations and wishes. Of course, they didn't forget to mock me too. So what if Giselle was the CEO's girlfriend? Look who became Mrs. West in the end. She's an old hag. Don't even compare her to a young beauty like Chelsea. I knew Benjamin posted that just to provoke me, but this time, I only gave it a cold laugh and hit like. Soon my parents saw the post and called me. Sweetheart, what's going on with Benjamin's post? Did he actually marry another woman? They had always worried about our marriage. All they wanted to see was Benjamin, and I settled down. Just as I was about to answer them, a message from Benjamin popped up. I made sure not to hide the post from your parents this time. They must be panicking by now, huh? If you apologize to Chelsea, I can explain to them that it was all a misunderstanding. Otherwise, deal with the consequences yourself. There was a time when Benjamin respected all my decisions and never forced me to do anything. Once, when we were having dinner at his parents' place, his mother insisted I eat eggs even though I was allergic to them. Benjamin got so furious that he flipped the table on the spot. Now, to force me into apologizing to Chelsea, he was willing to use my parents against me. At one point, I had to accept that the man who once loved me more than anything was dead. I ignored Benjamin. Instead, I replied to my parents, Mom, Dad, Benjamin and I are over. I'll take your advice this time and come home for blind dates. Mom and Dad had never approved of Benjamin in the first place, but I had insisted on staying with him, even leaving my hometown behind for him. Now, it seemed they had been right all along. Good. We'll start arranging blind dates for you right away. After hanging up, I bought a bus ticket for the next day, then took a cab home to pack my things. The moment I reached the door, I heard bursts of laughter coming from inside. I pushed the door open and saw 3 pairs of shoes by the entrance, matching family shoes. Immediately, I recognized one pair as Benjamin's. Chelsea had given them to him as a birthday present, though they were probably cheap street stall sneakers that cost less than $10. The workmanship was terrible, and the material looked flimsy and cheap. Yet, Benjamin treasured them like gold. Meanwhile, the custom leather shoes I had bought him, worth thousands, had been left untouched until they gathered dust. He had even criticized my taste, saying the shoes were embarrassing and impossible to wear outside. Back then, I had genuinely believed there was something wrong with my sense of style. Foolish as I had been, I had even humbly asked Chelsea for advice on improving my taste. Looking back, I realized Benjamin simply hated anything I gave him. I kicked the 3 pairs of shoes aside and walked into the house. The moment I looked up, I saw Chelsea lounging lazily on the couch in my nightgown, watching TV like she owned the place. Her daughter, Sadie Miller, was running barefoot all over my white carpet. Mom had stayed up night after night making that carpet for me, her eyes bloodshot from exhaustion. Now it was covered in dirty black footprints from Sadie's feet. What made my blood boil was seeing my carefully collected figurines scattered all over the floor. Several of them had their arms and legs snapped off. Furious, I snatched one of the figurines back from Sadie's hands and questioned, "What are you people doing in my house?" She lifted her chin stubbornly. "Daddy said we could." The next second, Benjamin came out of the kitchen after hearing the commotion. He never cooked, yet he was standing there holding a spatula, making dinner for Chelsea and Sadie. "Sadie, what is it?" he called out lovingly. "Why are you calling for Daddy?" He was just about to pull Sadie into his arms to comfort her when he finally noticed me and froze. "Wow. I didn't know you're a dad now, Benjamin," I said. Benjamin only froze for a split second before shrugging it off like it was nothing. Sadie's never had a father's love growing up. Letting her call me daddy isn't going to kill anyone. Besides, why are you suddenly back? I almost laughed. This is my home. Do I need a reason to be back? And more importantly, who gave you permission to bring them here? He looked justified in his actions. Chelsea's place is too far from Sadie's kindergarten. The daily commute is just exhausting, and eventually, it'll affect her studies. Our place happens to be close to the kindergarten, so I brought them over. The place is big enough anyway. They can stay here until they find somewhere suitable. And what if they never find it? I asked. He looked at them with obvious affection in his eyes. Then they'll stay here. It's just cooking 2 more portions of food every day. Previously, when I wanted my parents to stay with us for a while, Benjamin had flatly refused. He said he wasn't used to having outsiders in the house, and that he was a light sleeper, emphasizing he didn't want to be disturbed. Yet he personally invited Chelsea and Sadie over to stay. It appeared that only my parents were the outsiders. At that thought, my voice turned cold. I don't agree to them staying here. Benjamin's expression darkened instantly. Giselle, you really don't have a shred of empathy, do you? Benjamin said. I sneered. Oh, I'm definitely not as empathetic as you. Going as far as marrying your assistant, and then bringing her and her child into your girlfriend's home. Just then Chelsea, who had been silent, finally chimed in. Her eyes were red as she slowly took off my nightgown, looking fragile and pitiful. Giselle, Benny, please stop fighting because of me. If she doesn't want us here, I'll take Sadie and leave right now, even if it means she'll have a harder time going to school. I mean, you've already done more than enough, Benny. The fact that you gave Sadie a chance at education makes me so grateful that I can't possibly ask for anything more. As she spoke, she exchanged a glance with Sadie. In the next second, Sadie rushed at me and sank her teeth hard into my calf. Pain shot through me instantly as blood welled up. She didn't stop there. She clenched her fists and started hitting me wildly. You bad woman. Why are you kicking mommy and me out? This is my home. You're the one who should leave. Only after Sadie had hit me until my skin was red did Chelsea finally step in and pull her away. She's just a child, Giselle. Please don't take it to heart. Before I could even speak, Benjamin cut in first. Chelsea, just stay here with Sadie and settle in. He turned to me. Chelsea already feels bad about taking your marriage registration spot. She even bought you a gift to apologize, and yet you're still making a fuss over it. Honestly, the one who acts like a child is you. I looked over, and it was a half-eaten souffle. I said coldly, I'm allergic to eggs. I can't eat that. And I'm not a trash bin who takes leftovers. Tears brimmed in Chelsea's eyes. Benny, I know Giselle thinks my gift is cheap, but this is already the best I can afford. If she doesn't like it, she can just say so. Why does she have to be all sarcastic? Benjamin's expression turned stormy. Without warning, he grabbed the dessert and shoved it straight into my mouth. She went out of her way to give you something, and you still look down on it? At least give a better excuse than an egg allergy. You know what? Let me see how your so-called egg allergy works. I couldn't dodge in time. The dessert was forced into my mouth, the eggy smell instantly hitting my senses. I gagged hard and barely managed to spit it out after a while. By the time I finally caught my breath, my skin was already breaking out in angry red hives. It was only then that Benjamin seemed to remember I was seriously allergic to eggs. A flicker of guilt crossed his eyes. Giselle. I couldn't be bothered to listen and walked straight into the room. He followed me in, his tone softening. Giselle, I was just too angry and forgot about your allergy. I'm sorry. I was just wondering why he suddenly sounded so friendly when he finally revealed his real intention. Still, can you let Chelsea and Sadie stay here for a while? Once they find a place, I promise they'll move out. After that, I'll marry you to make it up to you. All right. So it was still all for Chelsea. I brushed his hand away. There's no need for that. I'll move out and make room for your little family of 3. Without another word, I lowered my head and started packing my luggage. That made Benjamin snap again. Look, I've already compromised. What more do you want? If you keep this up, I'm going to break up with you. A cold smile tugged at my lips. Sure. I was just about to say that. Let's break up. He froze. He had clearly expected that threatening to break up with me would make me back down like before, but I surprisingly agreed this time. Do you even hear yourself, Giselle? I nodded. Didn't you say you wanted to break up? I agreed. What's the problem now? I asked. Benjamin was stumped, his face red with anger. Chelsea and Sadie, who had been in the living room, heard the noise and pushed the door open. The former put on an innocent, pitiful act. Giselle, I didn't expect you'd go as far as breaking up with Benny just to force us out. I'll take Sadie and leave right now so we don't bother you anymore. She picked Sadie up and stormed out the door. After a moment of hesitation, Benjamin followed after them. Before leaving, he threw a harsh parting line over his shoulder. Fine, we'll break up. And go ahead and leave if you want. Let's see how long this tantrum lasts. Of course, he thought I was just throwing a fit. I still remembered the last time he made me take the blame for Chelsea. We had argued so badly that I had stormed out of the house. He searched for me for a long time before finally finding me. At that time, he held me and cried. Giselle, I only asked you to take the blame because I was worried something would happen to Chelsea, and no one would take care of the child. I didn't consider your feelings, and that's my fault. But I really couldn't just stand by and do nothing, could I? Can you please forgive me? Seeing how sincerely he apologized back then, I eventually forgave him. He probably assumed this time would be the same. As long as he coaxed me a little, I would go back to him. But he was wrong. This time, I was really leaving him for good. After Benjamin left, I started packing my things. I took down all 999 couple photos we had once taken together from the wall, and burned them in one go. Then, I went to the backyard and stood there in a daze, looking at the grapevine and the swing hanging beneath it. I liked eating grapes, so Benjamin had planted a grapevine for me in the yard. He also built a swing so we could sit there in the summer and spend time together. Now everything had changed. I picked up an axe and cut down both the grapevine and the swing. With it, I cut off everything that once represented our 6 years together. After that, I brought my property deed to a real estate agency to sell the house. I had paid for it in full, and it was under my name, so the process was quick. The agent handled everything efficiently and listed the house online. Leaving the agency, I stopped by the company to submit my resignation. The HR manager, Annie Clark, told me I needed Benjamin's approval before it could be processed, and asked me to call him to confirm. I tried calling him over 10 times, but he didn't pick up once. In the end, Annie had no choice but to call him directly instead. This time he answered immediately. "Hello, Mr. West. Ms. Johnson would like to. The company seal is in the drawer. Tell her to do whatever she wants with it. I'm Busse. Don't call me unless it's something important." Before Annie could even respond, Benjamin had already hung up. Well, with his approval, she had no reason to block my resignation anymore. So she quickly processed it for me. The next second, I received a private, provoking message from Chelsea. In the photo, Benjamin, who had always been afraid of heights, was at an amusement park, riding a roller coaster with her and Sadie. She wrote, "Only smart people know when to back down." No wonder Benjamin claimed to be busy. That was why he didn't even bother asking and just agreed so quickly. He was busy accompanying his new family. I sneered and replied, "I can't help if someone loves picking up trash. In that case, I'll leave it to them." After finishing my work handover, I left the company. As soon as I stepped out of the building, the real estate agent sent me a message. "Hello, Ms. Johnson. Good news, we've found a buyer. We can proceed with the signing tomorrow." "All right. Thank you for your work." After that, I took a cab home. All the while, Chelsea kept sending me updates of Benjamin spending time with them. "Benny is riding the Ferris wheel with Sadie and me. Everyone says we look like a real family. Benny even bought the amusement park and registered it under our names. You're not going to be mad, right, Giselle?" I ignored Chelsea. That night, Benjamin didn't come home. I was unbothered and slept soundly. The next day, after signing the sales contract with the buyer, I packed my luggage and headed straight for the bus station. On the way there, I unexpectedly ran into Benjamin and Chelsea just as they were leaving kindergarten after registering Sadie for school. He was holding Sadie in his arms, while Chelsea clung happily to him. They looked exactly like a family of 3. Even passers-by couldn't help commenting, "What a happy family. The parents are so loving and well-matched. That kid is so lucky." Benjamin smiled without saying anything, clearly enjoying himself. Then he saw me. He froze for a moment, quickly put Sadie down, and pulled his arm out from Chelsea's grip. A trace of guilt flashed across his face. "What are you doing here, Giselle? It's working hours. Are you skipping work?" I almost laughed. I had already resigned a full day ago, yet he didn't even know. "I've already resigned." He didn't believe me. His brows furrowed tightly. "What? Yesterday's breakup wasn't enough. Now you're pretending to resign too? Stop it, Giselle. This is getting out of hand." Chelsea's eyes rolled slightly as she chimed in with a fake tone. "Benny." She must have realized she was wrong and followed us here to apologize. Benjamin visibly relaxed. A faint smile returned to his lips. "If you want me to forgive you, fine. But you'll have to apologize to Chelsea first. And since Chelsea has trouble sleeping, you'll give them the master bedroom. You take the study instead. Also, you'll be responsible for all their meals every day as compensation. Not a single condition can be missing." What a joke. He was treating me like a live-in maid. I had originally planned to tell him about selling the house later, but since we had run into each other, I might as well say it now. Don't think I can agree to any of those conditions because I just sold the house. Benjamin's eyes widened. "You sold the house? Why didn't you tell me something this important?" "It's my house. I'll sell it if I want to," I said coldly. "I don't need your permission." Meanwhile, Chelsea kept fanning the flames. "Wow, Giselle. I didn't think you'd sell the house just to kick both Sadie and me out. If you hate me so much, I'll file for a divorce with Benny right this moment. I'll move out of the house and won't bother you anymore." Benjamin looked at her with concern. "But you just returned the house and used the refunded rent to pay for Sadie's tuition. Where do you go if you move out?" She wiped away her non-existent tears. "What can I do when Giselle doesn't want us around? I'll just sleep under a bridge with Sadie then. It might be cold, but at least we won't have to bother anyone." Sadie spat in my direction. "You bad woman who bullies mommy. Daddy, teach her a lesson." Benjamin's expression turned cold as well. I don't care what kind of tantrum you're throwing, Giselle, but there has to be a limit. If you keep this up, don't even think about getting married to me for the rest of your life. At his 101st threat, I actually laughed out loud. Benjamin, have you forgotten? We already broke up. Why are we still talking about getting married? The heavy iron door of the bus hissed shut, sealing out the damp, gasoline-tinted air of the city terminal. I sat by the window, resting my head against the cool glass as the bus began its slow, rumbling crawl toward the highway. My calf, where Sadie had bitten me, throbbed with a dull, persistent ache. Beneath the bandage, I didn't care. With every mile of gray highway that slid past, the suffocating weight that had pressed down on my chest for 6 years began to lift, replaced by a quiet, clear emptiness. I pulled out my phone, went into my contacts, and systematically blocked Benjamin West's number, his work line, his social media accounts, and his email. Then I did the same to Chelsea Miller. I was officially offline. Meanwhile, back at the high-end residential complex in the city center, a sleek, black sedan pulled into the driveway. Benjamin got out of the car, his face still tight with the lingering irritation from our encounter at the school gates. He carried Sadie in his arms while Chelsea walked closely beside him, her hand resting lightly on his elbow. Benny, do you think Giselle is actually going to pack up her things? Chelsea asked, her voice carrying a soft, worried tremor that she knew exactly how to weaponize. The real estate agent. What if she actually sold the house? Sadie and I, we really don't want to cause trouble between you two. Benjamin let out a short, dismissive snort as he led them into the elevator. She's bluffing, Chelsea. I've known Giselle for 6 years. She has no family in this city, and all her friends are through my company. Where would she go? She's just throwing a tantrum because I gave you the master bedroom. He pulled out his key card and pressed it against the smart lock of the apartment door. Beep. Red light. The lock didn't budge. Benjamin frowned. He swiped the card again, harder this time. Beep. Red light. Access denied. What is wrong with this thing? He muttered, his brow furrowing as he began to punch in his backup passcode on the digital keypad. Before he could finish the third digit, the heavy door was swung open from the inside. A tall, burly man in a flannel shirt, holding a heavy-duty screwdriver, stood in the doorway. Behind him, 3 moving men in gray uniforms were busy wrapping the dining table in thick layers of protective plastic wrap. Can I help you? The burly man asked, his voice deep and entirely devoid of the polite deference Benjamin was used to receiving as a CEO. Benjamin went rigid, his hands slowly falling from the keypad. Who the hell are you? Why are you in my girlfriend's apartment? Get out before I call the police. The man didn't look intimidated. He reached into his back pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and held it directly in front of Benjamin's face. It was the property deed, fresh from the Land Bureau, stamped with the official red seal of the Municipal Housing Authority. I'm the new owner, Mr. West, the man said flatly. I purchased this property in full yesterday afternoon from Ms. Giselle Johnson. The transaction was cleared, the taxes were paid, and the deed was transferred to my name at 9 this morning. He pointed his screwdriver toward the moving men. Ms. Johnson instructed us to dispose of any cheap trash left in the house. If these 3 pairs of shoes by the door belong to you, I suggest you take them now. Otherwise, they're going into the dumpster. No, that's impossible. Chelsea shrieked, her voice losing its delicate, fragile tone as she lunged forward, trying to peer into the apartment. This is our home. Sadie's school is just 2 blocks away. Benny, do something. Benjamin's face went from a healthy, angry pink to a sickly, hollow white. Stared at the red seal on the deed, his chest heaving under his designer suit jacket. Giselle. He whispered, his hands shaking as he pulled out his phone and frantically dialed my number. The number you have dialed is currently unavailable. Please try again later. He dialed again. The result was the same. He called Annie Clark, the HR manager. Annie, did Giselle submit her resignation yesterday? Why didn't you report it to me? Annie's voice through the speaker was quiet, carrying a cold, professional distance. Mr. West, I tried to call you 10 times yesterday afternoon to discuss her resignation. You told me to use the company seal and do whatever she wanted because you were busy at the amusement park. She paused, then added, her resignation was processed at 4:30 p.m. yesterday. Under the terms of her contract, since she was the chief designer and co-founder, her departure immediately revokes the West Group's exclusive right to use her design patents. The phone went dead. Benjamin stood in the empty, carpetless corridor, the cold draft from the elevator shaft hitting his face, as the reality of his test finally began to settle into his chest. The West Group's executive office was in a state of absolute, unmitigated chaos. For 6 years, the company's core business had relied on my design proposals. The clients, many of whom were old friends of my father back in our hometown, worked with the West Group solely because of their trust in me. Now, with my resignation formally processed, the house of cards was beginning to collapse. Mr. West, the head of the marketing department, said, his face pale as he stood before Benjamin's desk. The Summit Group, they just called. They've decided to suspend the contract negotiations for the new smart home project. Benjamin slammed his palm onto the desk, his eyes bloodshot, his hair unbrushed. Suspended? Why? We've been preparing for this summit for a year. The design proposal. The Summit Group's review board noticed that Ms. Johnson's name was missing from the lead designer slot on the registration form. The marketing head whispered, sweat beading on his forehead. They know she resigned, they said. They said without Ms. Johnson's personal guarantee on the quality assurance, they don't believe the West Group has the technical capability to deliver the project. I have Chelsea, Benjamin roared, pointing a trembling finger at the door. She's the chief assistant. She has the design proposal Giselle gave her. Miss Miller, the marketing head said, his voice dropping into a low, uncomfortable register, has never managed a large-scale project in her life. Mr. West. And the proposal she presented to the review board yesterday, it was rejected within 10 minutes. They said the interior logistics calculations were completely flawed. It looks like she copied the templates without understanding the underlying code. Benjamin whipped his head toward Chelsea, who was sitting on the sofa in the corner, her hands shaking as she clutched a glass of water. Chelsea, Benjamin said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous rumble. You told me you understood the proposal. You told me Giselle was just trying to look important by keeping the calculations to herself. Benny, I did understand it. Chelsea stammered, her eyes instantly reddening as she tried to put on her usual pitiful act. Giselle must have tampered with the files before she left. She did it on purpose to ruin me. She's so malicious. Enough, Benjamin screamed, sweeping a stack of folders off his desk, the papers scattering across the floor. I don't want to hear about her being malicious. I want the proposal fixed. If we lose the Summit Group, the company's cash flow will dry up by the end of the month. He turned to his secretary. Get me a rental apartment in the city center. Something suitable for Chelsea and Sadie. And make sure it's close to the school. Mr. West, the secretary said, looking at the floor. The rental prices near the school have surged this season. A 3-bedroom apartment requires a deposit of $30,000, since your personal accounts are currently frozen due to the bank's audit on the joint mortgage. Benjamin fell back into his chair, his hands covering his face as he realized that the money he had used so casually to buy Chelsea an amusement park and register her daughter for school was not his money. It was Giselle's. The house he had sold, the cards he had used, and the company's core assets, they were all tied to the wealth I had built with my own hands while he was busy playing the daddy to another woman's child. The bus ride to my hometown took 8 hours. By the time the vehicle pulled into the quiet, tree-lined streets of our district, the rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh, cool, and smelling of damp cedar and pine. As soon as I stepped off the bus, a warm, soft woolen shawl was wrapped around my shoulders. Giselle. My mother's voice was thick with tears as she pulled me into her arms. My baby, you're finally home. My father stood beside her, his hair white, his eyes red-rimmed but filled with a deep, silent relief. He didn't look at my swollen calf or the bruises on my arms. He simply took my heavy suitcase and loaded it into the trunk of his modest sedan. Let's go home, Giselle, my father said softly. Your mother made your favorite stew. The next 3 days were the quietest days of my life. I slept in my childhood bedroom, the sheets smelling of sunshine and lavender. Every morning, my father would bring me fresh grapes from our garden, and my mother would spend hours cooking the herbal soups I had missed for 6 years. There was no Benjamin screaming at me for being petty. There was no Chelsea dumping ice water over my head under the guise of a premarital test. And on the 4th day, my mother knocked on my door, her face bright with a gentle, excited smile. Giselle, your uncle arranged a meeting for you tonight, she said, handing me a beautifully wrapped box. He's the son of our old neighbor, Mr. Vance. He went abroad to study design, and he just returned to take over his family's conglomerate. His name is Henry. I looked at the simple, dark green dress inside the box. It was elegant, high class, and entirely devoid of the cheap, flashy ruffles Chelsea favored. Mom, I've only just broken up. It's not a marriage proposal, sweetheart, my mother said, gently stroking my hair. It's just a dinner. Henry has always respected your work. He said he's been following your design blog for 3 years. The dinner was held at a quiet, high-end restaurant overlooking the lake. When I entered the private room, A man stood up from his chair. He was tall, sharply dressed in a slate gray suit, with a calm, handsome face, and eyes that held none of the arrogant, controlling coldness I had grown used to seeing in Benjamin. Henry Vance. Ms. Johnson, Henry said, offering his hand with a respectful, gentle bow. It's an honor to finally meet you in person. I've spent the last 3 years watching your work signed under the West Group's name, and I've always felt it was a waste of your talent. I shook his hand, his grip warm, dry, and steady. A waste? I asked, sitting down across from him. Yes, Henry said, his lips curling into a soft, genuine smile. Benjamin West is a businessman, Giselle. But you are an artist. He used your designs to build his throne, but he never understood the poetry in your lines. He picked up his glass of water, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my heart beat a little faster. I've just established the Vance Group's new design division in our hometown. I would be honored if you would accept the position of Chief Design Officer, not as an employee, but as my partner. I looked at his clean, honest eyes, and for the first time in 6 years I felt a warm, quiet hope begin to bloom in my chest. While my life in my hometown was starting to bloom, Benjamin's world in the city was turning to ash. The Summit Group's design presentation was a disaster. Chelsea stood on the stage, her face pale, her hands shaking as she tried to read the presentation slides. When the review board asked her about the interior logistics calculations, she stumbled over her words, her lips trembling as she looked at Benjamin for help. Miss Miller, the head of the review board, a cold, elderly academic who had been my father's colleague for 30 years, said through his microphone, "This design is a direct copy of Ms. Giselle Johnson's award-winning project from last year. And the modification you've made, it's not only incompetent, it's legally plagiarized." He stood up, his face dark with disappointment. "The West Group is disqualified from the summit, and our legal department will be filing a formal complaint with the Intellectual Property Bureau regarding your unauthorized use of Ms. Johnson's registered design patents." "No, Mr. Sterling, please," Benjamin shrieked, running toward the stage from the VIP seats. "Giselle is my fiancée. She gave us the proposal. It's a family business. Ms. Johnson resigned from your company 4 days ago, Mr. West," Mr. Sterling said coldly, "and she has already signed an exclusive partnership agreement with the Vance Group. You have no legal right to her patents." As Benjamin stood in the empty hall, his chest heaving, his phone began to vibrate violently in his pocket. It was his chief financial officer, Mr. West. The man's voice was a low, panicked whisper. "The bank, they've just called in our outstanding business loans. They said without Ms. Johnson's family's investment guarantees, the West Group's credit rating has been downgraded to junk status. They're demanding full payment of $5 million by Friday." Benjamin's hand went cold. $5 million? Where am I supposed to get $5 million? "There's more, Mr. West," the CFO whispered, sweat practically audible through the line. "We've just completed an audit of the company's petty cash registry. Over the last 2 years, Chelsea Miller has embezzled over $800,000 from the corporate accounts under the guise of Sadie's medical expenses and kindergarten tutoring fees." Benjamin whipped his head toward Chelsea, who was standing on the stage, her hand clutching her designer bag, her eyes wide with a sudden, terrified panic. "Chels," Benjamin whispered, his voice dropping into a register of absolute, cold-blooded finality. You stole from the company?" The New York Design Summit was the grandest event of the year. The entire industry elite had gathered in the grand ballroom of the Marriott, but the atmosphere was thick with attention that had nothing to do with the change of seasons. Every eye in the room was fixed on the entrance, waiting for the arrival of the Vance Group's new partner. At precisely 8 o'clock, the massive mahogany doors of the hall were thrown open. Henry Vance entered first, wearing his sharp slate gray suit, his posture perfect, his hand resting comfortably on my waist. And beside him walked me. I wore a bespoke, emerald green silk gown that clung to my figure with an elegant, healthy beauty. My sallow complexion was completely gone. My cheeks were flush with a vibrant, natural pink, my eyes bright and sharp under the light of the crystal chandeliers. Around my neck, catching the light with a blinding, diamond-cut fire, was the necklace Henry had designed for me. The crowd erupted into a loud, respectful applause. "Look at her. She looks 10 years younger. She was the brain behind the West Group, and now she's with the Vances." Benjamin stood in the corner of the room. He was no longer wearing his immaculate tailored suits. He wore a cheap, off-the-rack navy suit, his face thin and covered in a rough, gray stubble. Beside him, Chelsea stood clutching her faded bag, her face pale, her high-end makeup ruined by her tears. "Giselle," Benjamin whispered, his voice cracking as he took a slow, trembling step toward me. his hands reaching out toward my dress. Giselle, please. Mr. Sterling, the bank. They've initiated the foreclosure. If you don't sign the credit guarantee, the company will be bankrupt by Monday. He dropped to his knees on the polished floor, his hands clutching my coat hem. I'm sorry, Giselle. I was wrong. I'll make Chelsea leave. I'll throw her and Sadie out tonight. We can get married tomorrow. I'll give you the master bedroom. I'll cook for you every day. Just save the company. I looked down at him kneeling in the mud of his own making. The dapper, arrogant CEO. The man who had shoved a souffle into my mouth while telling me my egg allergy was a tantrum. Benjamin, I said, my voice completely calm, completely flat. We broke up 4 days ago. Why are you still talking about getting married? No. Giselle, we have 6 years of history. He shrieked, his voice cracking as the security guards, summoned by Henry's personal assistant, finally entered the room, their heavy leather-gloved hands clamping down on his shoulders, dragging him out into the quiet corridor. I loved you, he screamed as the double doors clicked shut behind him. I loved you, but his voice was easily swallowed by the quiet hum of the air conditioning, leaving the room silent and bright under the warm spring sun. The winter storms had cleared, leaving the city's central district bright, cold, and fresh under the morning sun. I stood on the balcony of the Vance Group's new headquarters, my hand holding a cup of hot chamomile tea. My face was healthy, my cheeks flush with a natural pink, my eyes clear and peaceful under the light of the sun. Ms. Johnson, I mean Mrs. Vance, Mr. Grant, our chief legal counsel, said, stepping onto the balcony with a leather folder. The acquisition of the remaining West Group assets has been completed. The company is fully operational under our new, non-profit design charter. And Benjamin? I asked, my voice calm. He's been working as a sales representative on the South Side, Grant said. Quietly. His hands are covered in calluses, and he's living in a cheap rental flat near the port. And as for Chelsea, he paused, a cold, clinical smile on his lips. She's been arrested for grand larceny and embezzlement. Her family has abandoned her, and her daughter Sadie was returned to her biological father. The man Chelsea claimed didn't exist. I looked at the blue water of the lake, my grandfather's emerald ring caught in the light of the sun. The grapevine, I said, my voice completely steady, completely at peace, is already growing in our new garden, Mr. Grant. And the swing is built under the elm tree. I'm glad, Grant said, bowing his head respectfully. I turned back to my office, the gold letters on the door shining under the sun. Giselle Johnson, Chief Design Officer. The 6 years of darkness were over. The cheap shoes were burned. And as I sat down in my high-backed leather chair, looking out over the city that was finally completely mine, I knew that the servant had left the stage, and the true sovereign of the boardroom had finally come home.